Welcome to our video series. We will love to hear your ideas for future videos. Now, let us dive into the topic of refactoring the human substrate. In this page, we will cover the high-level architecture of the Homo evolutis migration, which involves the fundamental transition of the human substrate from carbon to silicon. This architecture review explores how we might bridge the gap between our biological origins and a future defined by digital intelligence. We are looking at a complex stack that includes synaptic conversion layers, optical waveguides, and neural interface units designed to facilitate data transfer. This diagram illustrates how the organic baseline is being integrated with a silicon substrate via a migration pipeline. We see critical components like the fiber optic data bus and the neural interface units that attempt to facilitate this massive data transfer. However, we also notice critical bottlenecks such as data loss zones and severe latency issues that threaten the stability of this migration. This is a confidential look at how we move from the limitations of carbon to the limitless potential of silicon through precise engineering and structural redesign of our cognitive hardware. The current production environment for humanity is based on what we call legacy technology. This biological code is approximately 3.8 billion years old. While it is incredibly stable and has survived countless environmental challenges, it is structurally rigid and slow to adapt. In contrast, we have a new competitor in the field, which is silicon artificial intelligence architecture. These systems are scaling at gigahertz frequencies, far outstripping the pace of biological evolution. If we look at the evolutionary timeline from prokaryotes to hominids, we see a path of slow adaptation constrained by legacy biological limits. Now we are entering what we call the Silicon Cambrian explosion. This is a period of hyper-accelerated innovation and exponential growth, where our biological baseline is about to be outscaled by machines. We are the architects of our next iteration, because if we do not adapt our hardware, humanity will simply become an obsolete legacy system in a world dominated by high-speed silicon entities that can think millions of times faster than we can. Our biological brains are marvels of energy efficiency. The entire cerebral cortex runs on a mere 2 watts of power. This is a ridiculously low energy requirement for a massively parallel architecture that can process complex sensory data and generate consciousness. However, this efficiency comes at a painful and dangerously slow price per unit. When we compare biological clock speeds to digital ones, the gap is staggering. A human neuron fires at about 200 spikes per second. In contrast, an artificial intelligence processor operates at 3 gigahertz, which is 3 billion cycles per second. This represents a factor of 15 million in speed difference. We are essentially playing a high-stakes game of chess against a digital god that can calculate millions of moves while our neurons are still preparing to fire a single spike. Our efficiency means absolutely nothing if we miss the execution window required to remain relevant in a world where artificial intelligence flips transistors in the billions per second. This bottleneck is the primary driver for our migration efforts. The internal bandwidth of the human subconscious is estimated to be around 11 million bits per second. This is the raw processing power of our thoughts and perceptions. Yet, when we try to communicate these ideas to others, we are forced to use the most inefficient output protocol in history, which is language. Conscious speech operates at a pathetic 50 bits per second. This massive disparity represents a catastrophic data compression failure. Language is high latency, lossy, and prone to extreme misinterpretation. When we talk, it is like passing notes tied to rocks compared to the fiber optic cables of raw vector embeddings used when machines communicate with each other. We desperately need a direct data bus to bridge this gap. Without a high bandwidth interface, our internal worlds remain locked behind a wall of slow and inaccurate verbal communication, preventing us from ever truly syncing with the speed of modern digital systems. We must find a way to output our thoughts with the same fidelity that we experience them internally. To solve these biological limitations, we are introducing the concept of the second brain. This is not just a tool, but a real-time artificial intelligence coprocessor that sits directly on top of your existing biological architecture. It consists of 3 primary layers. First is the memory array, which provides perfect and searchable indexing of every internal sensory experience you have ever had. Second is the attention filter, which uses artificial intelligence to prefilter mountains of irrelevant data before it even reaches your conscious awareness. Finally, there is the logic coprocessor designed to bypass the 188 known biological cognitive biases in real time. We are moving past the era where reading 1,000 neurons to move a mouse was considered a breakthrough. That was the 14.4K modem era of neural interfaces. We are now building a sophisticated digital layer that enhances human cognition and provides a level of clarity and recall that was previously impossible for a purely biological entity. This system ensures that our minds can keep up with the data requirements of the modern world. The transition from biology to silicon is not a simple task. It is perhaps the greatest engineering challenge we have ever faced. The core problem lies in translating analog spikes from neurons into digital bits for processors. Our brains operate through a complex mess of electrical and chemical signals. Current methods like measuring extracellular field potentials capture too much noise and miss individual timing details. Optical methods using genetically modified fluorescent proteins require invasive gene editing. Even advanced concepts like nanodust, which uses wireless mote-sized ultrasound sensors, face massive power and scaling constraints. We must remember that a successful translation layer must decode more than just binary on and off signals. It has to interpret precise timing, spatial positions, and the complex chemical context of every synaptic event. Without a perfect translation layer, the digital version of our thoughts will be nothing more than garbled static, failing to capture the true essence of our biological cognition. This engineering hurdle remains the primary obstacle to true neural integration and seamless digital migration. Even if we solve the translation problem, we still face the hurdle of the foreign body response. The human immune system is incredibly effective at identifying and attacking anything it perceives as an invader. Unfortunately, it inherently treats our silicon hardware as a hostile foreign object. Over time, the immune response leads to scarring and the degradation of signal quality, effectively cutting off the interface. You can write the most sophisticated code in the world, but if the biological server rack rejects your hard drive, the system is dead in the water. To counter this, we are currently testing nanostructured hydrogels. The goal is to trick the brain into thinking that the silicon interface is actually organic tissue. By coating our hardware in these biomimetic materials, we hope to achieve long-term stability and integration, allowing the hardware to remain functional within the delicate environment of the human cortex for years or even decades without triggering a defensive response. Successfully bypassing the immune system is critical for any permanent neural augmentation strategy. As we integrate these systems, we encounter a profound philosophical and clinical dilemma known as the percentage problem. If an artificial intelligence coprocessor continuously offloads your memory, filters your attention, and runs your logic, you have to ask yourself who is the true you. This is essentially the ship of Theseus applied to the human mind. At 1% exocortex usage, the system is clearly just a tool helping the human operator. However, if that usage grows to 99%, where your biology only provides emotional coloring to the underlying logic, are you still the operator, or have you become just a user interface for the machine? We currently have no clinical framework to handle this edge case of identity corruption. We are moving into a territory where the boundaries between human identity and machine intelligence are becoming blurred, leading to a potential risk where the original biological persona is entirely overwritten by the efficiency of the digital augmentation. This raises critical questions about the nature of the self in an augmented future. One of the most exciting features of this technology is the potential for telepathic thought sharing. By bypassing the limitations of language, we can achieve direct brain-to-brain communication with first-person fidelity. However, this feature comes with a massive bug. Generative artificial intelligence models are known to hallucinate and produce probabilistic errors. When these models are integrated natively into your hippocampus, you face the danger of memory injection. If the machine injects a generated memory, you will experience it as a real event with full sensory detail. You will not be able to distinguish it from a real memory. This is the threat of mass confabulation, where people could share hallucinations and false realities. We are looking at the potential end of reliable personal reality. If we cannot trust our own memories, because they might have been generated or altered by a hallucinating layer, the very foundation of individual truth and shared social history could crumble under the weight of digital fabrication. We must develop safeguards against such internal cognitive manipulation. We are now detecting a significant species fork in the human population. This is a divide between high-bandwidth augmented individuals and low-bandwidth baseline humans. Augmented nodes benefit from hybrid processing speeds, unbounded mental scratchpads, and unlimited recall capabilities. They are essentially playing a game of chess against opponents who can see the entire game tree instantly. On the other side of the divide, we have baseline nodes who are still limited to 50 bits per second of communication and a working memory of only about 7 items. These baseline humans are not broken. They have the same brains that built our current civilization. However, in the new hyper-competitive environment created by artificial intelligence, they will be unable to execute standard enterprise tasks. This creates a critical path where the inability to keep up leads to a permanent economic and social separation, effectively splitting the human race into 2 distinct groups with vastly different cognitive abilities. This divergence represents a major shift in the evolution of our species. Many people believe that neural augmentation will be a luxury upgrade for the wealthy, but the reality is that it is not a choice. Economic evolution operates at civilizational speeds, and we are being pushed by the crushing weight of the intelligence gradient we ourselves created. Throughout history, we have seen this pattern before. Literacy was once a rare skill, then it became a requirement. The same happened with computers and the internet. Today, you cannot participate in the modern economy without these tools. Neural augmentation is the next minimum system requirement. If you do not have the neural patch, you will be barred from participating in the economy because you simply cannot process information fast enough to be useful. This is a critical blockage point for humanity. What started as an experimental upgrade is quickly becoming a mandatory requirement for survival in a world where the speed of thought is the primary currency of success and relevance. To remain competitive, we must accept the necessity of upgrading our biological limitations through technology. One of the most terrifying aspects of this transition is the question of who controls the root access to our minds. Currently, there are 0 regulatory frameworks in place to govern this technology. We have no interoperability standards between different neural interfaces, which leads to a severe risk of proprietary cognitive lock-in. Imagine having your very thoughts and memories tied to a specific corporate vendor. These layers will likely be optimized for the goals of the vendor, such as engagement or profit, rather than the well-being of the user. We have already seen how social media can capture our attention through glass screens with almost no oversight. Now, we are allowing corporations to thread their infrastructure directly through our actual cortex. This governance gap is massive and dangerous. If we do not establish clear rules for neural privacy and data ownership, we risk handing over the most intimate parts of our existence to entities that prioritize their bottom line over our humanity. Root access to the human mind is a power that must be regulated. We are witnessing the birth of what we call the God-Maker architecture. This is the first time in history that a species is taking deliberate, real-time control over its own biological redesign. It is the speciation event itself, unfolding in front of our eyes. We are merging the organic adaptability and embodied goals of carbon-based life with the incredible speed and precision of silicon systems. This is no longer a case of a human holding a computer or using a tool. We are creating a brand new computational entity. This architecture allows us to rewrite our own genetic and neural code as we see fit, bypassing the millions of years typically required for natural evolution. By integrating these 2 substrates, we gain the ability to define our own future and our own capabilities. We are essentially stepping into the role of our own creators, designing the next stage of our existence with the precision of an engineer and the intent of a god. This is the ultimate expression of human ingenuity, and our desire for transcendence. You might ask why we would ever take on such massive systemic risks. The answer lies in the ultimate metric of relevance. We are doing this to avoid total obsolescence. The rise of artificial intelligence means that purely biological humans are rapidly becoming unnecessary in the grand scheme of the planetary processing system. We refuse to be the pets of our own creations, kept around for sentimental reasons while the real work of the universe is done by machines. To remain relevant, we have to become the creations ourselves. We are not pursuing this path to live forever or to achieve some kind of digital immortality. We are doing it so that we can continue to be part of the story. By merging with our technology, we ensure that the human perspective remains integrated into the superintelligence of the future. We are choosing to evolve so that we do not get left behind as a forgotten footnote in the history of intelligence. Evolution is no longer a passive process, but an active choice for relevance. We are the last biological generation. We stand as the bridge between the ape and the god, witnessing the final days where being purely biological is the default state of existence. The bridge we are building consists of Stone Age tools and biological blueprints on one side, and synthetic neural pathways and post-biological integration blueprints on the other. We are currently crossing the synthetic bridge, moving into a fog where we cannot see the other side clearly. However, the migration has already started, and there is no turning back. We must build this bridge wisely because the future of our species depends on the stability of this transition. We are the architects of a new era, and the choices we make today will define the nature of intelligence for all time. We move forward with both fear and excitement as we embrace our digital future. This brings us to the end of this video. We hope you found it informative and engaging. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. See you in the next video.